While the world stares at the bomb craters scarring the battlefield, a far deadlier black hole of death is silently devouring Tehran from within. Have you ever stopped to ask yourself what happens when the most powerful military force in the Middle East wakes up one morning and realizes its once bulging war chest is now nothing but a pile of worthless paper? As of this morning, Iran's ruling clerics are no longer strutting through Tehran's marble halls. They are underground desperate and hiding like cornered rats, while the United States Navy tightens its iron grip on the Strait of Hormuz and every sea lane that once fed the regime's war machine. Behind closed doors are the Moolas preparing for a strategic retreat. Or is there a hidden gold reserve we don't know about? The world watches missiles streak across the sky, and cities burn in the US-Israeli campaign against Iran. Yet something far more lethal is happening behind the scenes. The mullahs who have clutched power for decades are panicking in silence. They know the visible destruction from American carrier strike groups and precision sea attacks is only the opening act. What terrifies them most is the financial collapse that is now unstoppable. Even if the shooting stopped today, their regime would never recover, because the cash that bought loyalty-funded repression and kept the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps in line is evaporating at terrifying speed. The United States Navy has turned economic warfare into a masterclass of naval dominance, and the clerics are watching their empire of fear crumble under the weight of empty bank accounts and silent ports. Do you believe in this power of missiles, or the power of money, in overthrowing a regime? I will reply to the best opinions. Iran did not enter 2026 with a healthy economy that was suddenly shattered by conflict. The truth is far more damning. The regime has been bleeding money for years, and relentless American naval pressure in the Strait of Hormuz has simply ripped the bandages off a wound that was already fatal. Before the first Tomahawk missiles screamed from United States destroyers and carrier air wings lit up the night sky, Iran was already crippled by sanctions that slashed its oil exports to roughly 1.5 million barrels per day by late 2025. That figure is less than half of pre-2018 levels, choking the lifeblood of a regime that once floated on petrodollars. Foreign investors fled, major industries stalled. The Iranian Rial collapsed nearly 95% against the dollar in just a few years. Inflation surged past 50% in mid-2025 and rocketed to 68% this year. If the IRGC can no longer pay its fighters who will pull the trigger, is the Tehran regime collapsing from the outside under a hail of missiles? Or is it quietly disintegrating from within beneath the crushing weight of 2.5 quadrillion worthless rials? Ordinary Iranians felt the pain in skyrocketing food prices, worthless paychecks, and the creeping dread that tomorrow would be worse. The war did not create this nightmare. It simply accelerated the collapse, and the United States Navy is the relentless force driving that acceleration, with every warship on station and every carrier battle group patrolling these critical waters. The fighting itself has become an economic meat grinder. Every Iranian missile launch, every drone swarm sent against American and allied forces, every desperate attempt to resupply proxy militias costs millions that Tehran no longer has. Billions have been diverted to replace destroyed missile batteries, repair damaged ports, and keep the flow of weapons to Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis. Meanwhile, United States carrier strike groups operate with impunity, their decks loaded with F-35s and strike fighters that can reach any target along the Iranian coast in minutes. The 24-hour nightmare has officially begun. Is this a conventional military campaign, or a meticulously planned economic execution orchestrated straight from Washington? Arleigh Burke-class destroyers and Ticonderoga-class cruisers enforce a de facto blockade that has strangled Iranian oil exports, turning once busy tanker routes into ghost lanes. American naval interdiction operations in the Strait of Hormuz and beyond have cut off the very revenue streams the mullahs counted on to survive. Foreign reserves that stood above $120 billion a decade ago have plummeted to between 20 and 30 billion today. That is not a decline, it is a financial free fall. Without hard currency reserves, the regime cannot defend its currency, stabilize markets, or cushion the blow of runaway inflation. Even the temporary spike in global oil prices offers no relief because United States Navy forces have made reliable Iranian exports almost impossible. The clerics are trapped, spending skyrockets on war, while income collapses under the shadow of American sea power. The banking system, once the quiet backbone of regime control, is now in full meltdown, and the United States Navy's pressure is the final nail in the coffin. Late last year, one of Iran's largest private lenders, Bank Ayande, imploded under the weight of 2.5 quadrillion rials in toxic debt, roughly $5 billion. The regime tried to hide the disaster by dumping those liabilities onto Bank Melli, the largest state-owned bank. On paper, it looked like a rescue. In reality, it was a desperate shuffle that only concentrated risk in the very institutions that keep the regime alive. Bank Ayande had funneled billions into corrupt, politically connected projects, including the monstrous Iran Mall in Tehran, a vanity project that became a symbol of excess rather than economic strength. The bank offered illegal high-interest rates to lure deposits, then used new money to cover old losses in a classic pyramid scheme that finally collapsed. Now the same disease is spreading. Banks tied directly to the Revolutionary Guard, such as SEPA, are cracking under identical burdens of bad loans to state enterprises and insider deals. When these banks falter, the damage does not stay inside the financial sector. It spreads straight into the regime's military and security apparatus, weakening the very forces the mullahs rely on to crush dissent. Every rial the clerics print to cover war costs only fuels the fire. The money supply has exploded in recent years, driving inflation into the stratosphere and destroying the purchasing power of ordinary Iranians. The Rial is now the weakest currency on earth. Imports have become luxury items. Factories sit idle without raw materials. Wages arrive late or not at all. The contrast could not be more brutal. While American warships and carrier aircraft dominate the Strait of Hormuz, turning Iranian ports into ghost towns, the mullahs continue pouring hundreds of millions into their proxy network across the region. Hezbollah alone receives nearly $700 million annually. Hamas gets around $100 million. Billions more have flowed to sustain Assad's remnants in Syria, the Houthis in Yemen, and Shia militias in Iraq. Since 2012, Tehran has spent well over $16 billion keeping these groups armed and active. From the clerics' perspective, this is insurance, a way to project power when their own economy lies in ruins. Yet every dollar sent abroad is a dollar not spent stabilizing banks, supporting factories, or feeding a restless population. Why are Iran's top clerics secretly rushing their fortunes to Dubai and London right now? Do they already know something the rest of the world hasn't realized yet? The United States Navy's relentless sea campaign has made that trade-off lethal. While American destroyers interdict tankers and carrier strike groups keep Iranian forces on the defensive, the regime's overseas adventures drain the last reserves of a collapsing treasury. What is your prediction? How many more days will the Tehran regime last? 24 hours or 24 days? Write your number down here. The human cost is already visible and growing more explosive by the day. More than 120,000 Iranian students are now studying abroad, a number that has doubled in 4 years. Doctors, engineers, and tech specialists are fleeing in record numbers. Over 4 million Iranians live outside the country, and surveys show 6 out of every 10 university graduates dream of joining them. The regime is not just losing money, it is hemorrhaging its future. The same young people who could rebuild the economy are voting with their feet, escaping a system that offers nothing but empty promises and rising prices. Protests that erupted after the 2022 death of Mahsa Amini never truly died. They simmered through currency crashes and inflation spikes, flaring again whenever bread prices soared or wages vanished. The mullahs responded with bullets and batons, but force alone cannot feed families or pay soldiers when the treasury is empty. Right now, as American naval forces maintain total dominance over the Strait of Hormuz and prepare for any escalation that could spill into wider sea battles, the Iranian regime faces a reckoning it cannot escape. The clerics who once believed their proxy armies and missile barrages could challenge the United States are watching their financial empire disintegrate under the pressure of sustained naval interdiction and precision strikes from the sea. The battlefield may still echo with explosions, but the real war is being won in the ledgers in the empty ports and in the silent panic spreading through underground bunkers where the mullahs hide. Tell me this. With United States carrier strike groups and destroyers now dictating the fate of every Iranian tanker and every Rial in the Treasury, do you believe the clerics will finally crack under the economic stranglehold? Or will they order one last desperate escalation that only accelerates their own collapse? Drop your thoughts in the comments right now, because the next few days could decide whether this naval pressure breaks the regime for good. The water of the Strait of Hormuz keeps flowing, yet the balance of power has shifted forever. Tankers still sail, but only those avoiding Iranian ports. Ports that once pulsed with oil revenue now sit under the watchful eyes of American warships. The mullahs who built their rule on cash, fear, and foreign militias are discovering that when the money stops, the fear loses its teeth and the militias become expensive luxuries they can no longer afford. The United States Navy has not just imposed sanctions, it has engineered a slow-motion financial execution through sea power that no amount of Iranian missiles or proxy attacks can reverse. Reconstruction after the fighting ends will demand resources Tehran no longer possesses. Foreign reserves are gone. Banks are hollow shells. The Rial is broken. Investor confidence is dead. The same regime that diverted billions to distant battlefields will now face a furious population at home that has endured years of hardship, while the clerics sheltered their own wealth in overseas accounts now being frozen by Western governments. When the guns finally fall silent, the real test begins. The clerics will confront a nation that has watched its economy gutted by American naval dominance, its future sold to proxy wars, and its leaders exposed as broke and powerless. Money has always been the hidden backbone of their control. Without it, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps grows restless. The security apparatus fractures and the shield of fear that protected the mullahs for decades begins to dissolve. History shows how quickly such regimes unravel once the cash runs dry. The battlefield may grow quiet, but the internal reckoning will be louder and far more decisive. The United States Navy has set the stage. The Iranian people will write the final act. Stay locked on this channel, because the situation inside Iran is developing faster than the mullahs can hide. American sea power continues to squeeze the life out of the regime, while the clerics scramble underground. What do you predict will happen when the money finally runs out and the IRGC can no longer be paid to keep order? Let us know in the comments below. Smash that like button. If you stand with decisive American naval action, hit subscribe and ring the notification bell so you never miss the next update. The pockets of the regime are emptying in real time, and the world is about to witness whether a broke dictatorship can survive the storm it helped create. The United States Navy is in control of the seas, and the Iranian regime is running out of time. This is the moment the mullah's empire begins to sink, and you do not want to miss a single second of it. Disclaimer: this video contains content generated or supported in whole or in part by artificial intelligence. This material is intended solely for simulation, illustration, and entertainment purposes. It does not represent real-world events, nor does it constitute political or military advice or verified information. Certain elements may be fictional, dramatized, or inaccurate. Viewers should not rely on this video as a credible source of information or as a basis for real-world decision-making.